8 years ago, I was sitting in a meeting in England and got a shock. I began to shake in the meeting. I hope nobody noticed, but I literally shook because I believed God was telling me that Islam would take over my country, Britain. And 8 years ago, it almost seemed crazy to think that. But it grew steadily in my heart and mind. And for 6 months, I didn't dare to tell anybody. I just sat on it. And then after 6 months, I began to discuss it with one or two very close friends. And I said, could God have told me this? What do you think? And they all, after thinking and praying about it, said, David, we believe God has spoken to you. And therefore you must tell other people. So I began to write a book. That wasn't the first thing I did. The first thing I did was to record a 4.5-hour talk. But a week before that talk, which was recorded on video, I'd had a minor stroke. And it looked as if I wouldn't be able to give that talk. In fact, the stroke had attacked 3 nerves in my brain. The nerves that controlled my throat, my tongue, and my lips. And at that time, it had affected no other part of my body. Well, people prayed, and I recorded that 4.5-hour talk, but finished up standing on one leg, my right leg, with my left side paralyzed. Quite an experience. In fact, towards the end of the talk, 3 men in the front row of the audience were leaning forward, ready to catch me. I didn't know that, but they saw it coming. But I finished the talk, and it went out. Many people thought it was ridiculous. Some even laughed, thought it absurd. But nevertheless, that was 8 years ago. Now they don't laugh. They don't think it's absurd, because in the following 8 years, Islam has made such strides in England. It's unbelievable. There are now whole communities living under Sharia law in Britain. They have a Muslim Parliament of Great Britain, which is openly speaking of the days when Britain will be a Muslim country. They're now actually using the phrase about 20 years' time. So the whole situation has become very serious. But in this book and in my speaking, I have said that I believe that God is raising up Islam to deal with a church that is not what he wants it to be in the Western world. And it's his doing. And I believe the church will be purified by the coming of Islam. It's the fastest growing religion in the world. It's now second only to Christianity in size. And I believe it presents a very clear challenge to Christians, particularly in Britain, but I think it's going to come in America and other Western countries. It's certainly spreading throughout Europe. So there's the book, and I called it The Challenge of Islam to Christians, because it is, I think, the biggest religious challenge to Christians and Christianity in our world today. So that's the book. It's 8 years old now, but it's still very relevant and very up to date.